You woke up this morning and did something that no other animal on Earth does. You got dressed. You chose what to put on your body before leaving the house. Maybe you spent 30 seconds on it. Maybe 30 minutes. Either way, you did it without thinking about why. But there was a moment in human history when the first person covered their body for the first time. And that moment changed everything. Not just how we look, but how we think about ourselves, each other, and what it means to be human. Because clothing was never just about staying warm, it was about something much deeper than that. Something we're still doing today every single morning without realizing it. Here's the thing about human skin. Compared to every other large mammal on Earth, we're almost naked. A lion has fur, a bear has fur, even our closest relatives, chimpanzees, have fur. We have almost none. And scientists spent a long time wondering why. The leading theory today is that our ancestors lost their fur around 1.2 million years ago, when they moved from forest to open savanna. Running long distances in hot sun generates enormous body heat. Fur traps that heat and kills you. Bare skin with sweat glands lets you cool down fast enough to survive. We didn't lose our fur by accident. We lost it because it made us better hunters. But that created a new problem. The same bare skin that kept us cool in Africa was useless at night, in winter or anywhere cold. So at some point, we had to find a way to borrow what we'd lost. We had to wear someone else's skin. The oldest direct evidence of clothing doesn't come from fabric. Fabric rots. It doesn't survive hundreds of thousands of years. Instead, it comes from something unexpected. Lice. Human body lice, the kind that live in clothing, are genetically distinct from head lice, which live in hair. By studying when the two species diverged, scientists can estimate when humans first started wearing clothes regularly enough for body lice to evolve as a separate species. The answer? Somewhere between 83,000 and 170,000 years ago. Think about what that means. Long before agriculture, long before language as we know it, long before any civilization existed anywhere on Earth, humans were already wearing clothes. The earliest actual clothing tools, bone needles, appear around 50,000 years ago. Thin, precise, with an eye for threading sinew or plant fiber. Someone sat down, carved a needle from bone, and stitched pieces of animal hide together to fit their body. That's not survival. That's craftsmanship. But here's what makes clothing uniquely human. From the very beginning, it was never purely functional. The oldest known decorative items in the world, shell beads found in Morocco dating back 130,000 years, were worn on the body as ornaments, not for warmth, not for protection, to be seen, to communicate something about who you were. Anthropologists believe that clothing and adornment served the same social function as language. It told strangers who you were before you spoke. Your tribe, your status, your beliefs. Whether you were available, dangerous, sacred, or powerful. Clothing was the first social media, a broadcast signal worn on your body every waking hour. As civilizations grew, so did the complexity of what people wore. In ancient Egypt, linen was so finely woven that archaeologists initially mistook it for silk. Pharaohs wore white to signal purity. Priests shaved their heads and wore specific garments to enter temples. What you wore literally determined where you were allowed to go. In ancient Rome, the color purple was reserved exclusively for emperors. The dye came from a sea snail called murex, and it took 10,000 snails to produce enough dye for a single garment. Wearing purple without permission was punishable by death. Cloth had become power, and the color of your clothing could determine whether you lived or died. Medieval Europe had sumptuary laws, legal codes that dictated exactly what each class of person was allowed to wear. Commoners couldn't wear silk. Only nobles could wear fur. The length of a man's shoe-pointed toe indicated his rank. Getting dressed wasn't a personal choice. It was a legal obligation. Then came the Industrial Revolution, and everything changed overnight. Before the 1800s, clothing was made by hand, one piece at a time. A single linen shirt took weeks to produce. Most people owned 2 or 3 items of clothing their entire lives, They repaired them, altered them, passed them down for generations. The invention of the sewing machine in 1846 and the rise of textile factories made clothing cheap enough for anyone to own. For the first time in history, ordinary people could dress like the wealthy. The visual language of status that clothing had carried for millennia started to break down, and the fashion industry was born, specifically to rebuild it, to create new signals, new hierarchies, new ways of using clothing to separate those who knew from those who didn't. Today, the global fashion industry is worth $1.7 trillion. The average American buys 68 pieces of clothing per year and throws away 81 pounds of it. Fast fashion has made clothing so cheap and disposable that we've lost all sense of what it used to mean to own something to wear. And yet, the core impulse hasn't changed at all. You still wake up every morning and choose what to say about yourself before you say a single word. The shoes, the colors, the fit, the brand. All of it is broadcasting the same signal that the shell beads in Morocco were broadcasting 130,000 years ago. Here I am. This is who I am. This is where I belong. Our ancestors wore animal skins to survive the cold. Then they started decorating those skins to survive something else. The need to be understood, recognized, and accepted by the people around them. We built looms and factories and global supply chains. We made clothing out of plastic, carbon fiber, and lab-grown materials. We turned it into a trillion-dollar industry and a source of pollution that's destroying the planet. And we still can't leave the house without deciding, very carefully, what we want the world to think of us. Some things about being human don't change no matter how many thousands of years go by.